So good morning, everyone. It's Adam Gibson here as part of Nourishing Norfolk, and I'm very happy to introduce our guest today, is Professor Marc Cohen. My short introduction on Marc is I've personally been in the fitness and wellness industry now for literally 31 years. And for most of that time, I've always known of Marc and known his reputation as a real leader in the real cutting edge as a medic, but in that cutting edge between medicine and wellness. And I think you've managed to push a lot of boundaries, mate, and led the way in many regards from what I understand. So welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you, Adam. And pleasure to be with you. And my career, I've had a long career, 30 years as a doctor, but half of that time I've been a professor at RMIT, Australia's biggest university, really trying to create wellness as an academic discipline. So whether, alternative medicine, complementary medicine, integrative medicine, that's sort of my discipline, but I'm really passionate about wellness. And as you say, I have been pushing those boundaries. And at the start of last year, I actually quit my job at the university and going out to try and do stuff in the real world. I figure I spent 38 years at university. I did an honours degree, a medical degree, 2 PhDs. And I figure that's 38 years is enough for an education. Now, I'll take a gap year. So last year I actually took a gap year, as you do when you graduate from uni. And now I'm ready to work in the real world. And I've got a whole lot of different business ventures and projects we might be able to discuss. But so wellness is my discipline. And I'm really happy to have, what I call simple, practical solutions that we can use to not just create wellness for ourselves, but generate that in our communities. And I have this saying that I believe that wellness can be just as contagious as illness, and that's with these regenerative practices. That when you use them and you give them away, you're not depleted. Everyone benefits from you giving things away, and microbes and bacteria is one of the things. So one of my businesses I've just created is a kombucha vinegar business where we're giving away living cultures of kombucha vinegar. Yep. And we've infused them with different, 10 different herbs and, flowers and fruits and leaves and roots and fungi. But you give that away and people can use that as a starter culture. They never have to buy it again if they don't want to. They can just keep on feeding it and growing it, and then they can give it away to their friends. And that's a perfect example of a regenerative wellness practice where you give it away and it can just literally infect people with good health.
Love it. All right. Well, look, just for those who are joining us, we are recording this, but what we're going to do is I've got maybe half an hour of questions for Marc that are based around some of the agenda we have for today. And then for those in the audience or who are joining us also on the call, we're going to let you have some questions and keep the last 20 minutes or so free for Q&A. So if everyone can sit tight, let me do the questioning to begin with, and then we'll go to you guys. So write your questions down as we go. But look, Marc, one of the things I'm really interested in chatting to you about today, I guess specifically, is the idea of wellness and the health industry or the wellness industry, and probably the distinction between those two potentially, but also where they intersect, if at all, with this idea of good agriculture and organic food and regenerative agricultural practices, and where those two disciplines, if you like, how they relate to each other. And I guess one of your areas that I know you have a lot of expertise in is looking where they become, if you like, a tourist destination or why would people turn up to experiencing that? That's really the theme of it. So regen, ag, wellness and tourism, how do they all match?
Great. Well, we can talk a lot about that. And, I believe, let's start with the basics. I mean, I'm actually a big fan of permaculture, and if people don't know permaculture, it's started by a couple of Aussies, Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, and Bill was always talking about when you get the basic things right, everything else can go right by itself. So if you're going to do wellness, you need to get the really basic things right, and for a community and for sort of a rural community, the basic things right, clean air, clean water, clean soil. And for people, adding clean, good sleep, because when you sleep well, everything else, your health can improve enormously. So, and as an island, you've already got great air quality because you're not, you don't have to have big industry polluting it. I'm not sure the water quality that you have there, but there are a lot of different water treatments you can produce. And one of my other businesses is a company called Beautiful Water, which is water that's filtered structured, balanced in terms of pH and minerals, blessed with positive intention, and actually given away for free. And there's a saying in the water industry that if you don't use a filter, you are one, because whatever's in the water is going to filter through your body.
Yeah.
And sort of obvious, but also it's pretty obvious that drinking less poison is good for you. And currently, the health industry, and this is maybe the difference between health and wellness. In the health industry, and the National Health and Medical Research Council, they want to have public health, so they want to ensure water isn't going to hurt people and have big outbreaks of infectious disease. So they don't really want healthy water; they want safe water.
Yeah.
And they put poison in the water to make sure it's safe. And the most potent poison that they can find is chlorine, because chlorine will kill things at 0.2 to 0.6 parts per million. When it comes out of your tap, it's designed to kill bacteria. So that can make microbiologically safe water, but it's not necessarily healthy water. And we started using chlorine in water, for example, just after the First World War, when chlorine was found to be good for, actually it wasn't that effective for killing people, but it was used in the battlefield for killing people. But then they started putting in the water to stop cholera and typhoid. But that was really before we understood about microbes and about the beneficial effects of microbes. And now that we know that the microbiome in our gut, and we're actually just learning about the microbiome on our skin, is so important for our overall health. And we all know that in the gut, well, I don't know if we all know, but it's been common knowledge that there is at least as many microbes in your gut as all the other human cells in your body put together. And that your gut has this big surface area because it has these villi, these little fingers in your gut that increase the surface area, and that's where the microbes live. And it's like we're carrying around the soil inside us, and the little villi are like the roots that go into that soil and take the nutrition out for our body. But hasn't been well understood till about a year ago is the microbes on our skin are so important. So when I first studied medicine nearly 40 years ago, we were taught, and it was taught up until recently, that the skin has a surface area of about 1.8 square meters. About maybe the surface area of a bed, a single bed. But that was before they realized that, well, every time you have a hair follicle and a sebaceous gland and a sweat duct, that skin dips down and dips back up. And if you count that surface area, your skin has a surface area of 30 square meters. And it's in all these glands that is where oils are produced that protect your skin from the sun. They protect your skin from drying out, from aging, from wrinkles. And also that's where and those oils also nourish the good bacteria that's in your skin that also protect you from pathogens. So your skin bacteria are really important, which means the water that you bathe in is really important, and potentially even more important than the water you drink. Because you might drink 2 liters of water, but you'll bathe in 200 liters. Yeah. And what they've shown is that if you bathe in chlorinated water, as soon as water's over about 25 degrees centigrade, which is usually you might bathe in 38 water, maybe even hotter if you like a really hot bath, that chlorine becomes volatile and it releases chloroform and trihalomethanes and all these disinfection byproducts that you breathe in through your lungs, and that goes straight into your blood. It bypasses your liver and also absorbs straight through your skin. And again, it bypasses your liver and goes straight into your blood. And they actually did a study, it was over 20 years ago now, where they got people to drink a couple of liters, they drink chlorinated water, and they measured the chlorine in the trihalomethanes and chloroform and sort of toxic elements in their blood. And they didn't find any because the liver had filtered them all out. Then they got people to bathe in like a waterproof wetsuit and just breathe the air in the bath or the shower. And then they got them to bathe and breathe fresh air and have the water touch their skin. And what they found is if you were just breathing the air in the shower or the bath, you had this big influx of chloroform and trihalomethanes in your blood. And if you just had the skin, hot water touching your skin, it went straight into your system. Wow. So, it's better not to bathe in poison, which is what chlorine is. So, having a really and same with agriculture. If you're using water to grow crops, you want to preserve the microbial diversity and the microbial richness in the soil. And we now know that the soil, the Earth's soil is the biggest repository of information on Earth. That's where all the microbial diversity is existing. So if you're using chlorinated water, or if you're using pesticides. Pesticides will reduce the life in your soil. And with regenerative agriculture, it's all about the bacteria in the soil and the worms and all the the microbes in the soil that actually generate. That's actually what generates all the goodness. So starting with a really good source of water, and I've been researching this at length, and there is a few treatments you can do with water. So obviously try not to put poison in it. Don't put chlorine and pesticides in that water if you can help it.
Yep. But
there's also treatments, and this is not, I don't sell these, but there's a number of treatments where you can get magnetic treatment devices or vortex devices where you can use that in your crops. And they find that you can use up to 70% less water, but get 30% more yield because you've structured the water. And water that's structured, and there's a whole science around the structuring of water, where the water molecules line up and the hydrogen bonds sort of line up so it can carry information. But if you structure the water with a magnetic device, and these are available commercially, actually they're found with crops, so you get up to 70% more yield with 30% less water use. But they've also found if you're making concrete, you'll get a moist, a better, stronger concrete. And if you use that water to make bread, you'll get a moister dough and you get a bit higher quality, moister bread. So this is not just sort of some airy-fairy, let's pray on the water and see what happens. This is actually physically demonstrated, more production of bread, of concrete, and of agriculture. So there are, getting the water right is one of the foundations that, I'd just start with.
But Marc,
happy to talk more about that, but
if you're on just on that, because a question will come up, and I'm partly asking for myself because I'm on tank water here, and I know a lot of people on the island probably are too. What's a tank water look like, or how do we need to treat tank water for it to be healthy? There's no chlorine in there potentially, but what's the?
So that's great. So having tank water, and if you're catching rainwater is relatively clean.
Yeah.
Because water, when it falls in rain, actually spirals down in the raindrops. It doesn't pick up a lot of pollution, but it does pick up some pollution in the atmosphere. Yeah. And then it depends on your roof and your tank and how you're treating your tank. And once water's stagnant in the tank, it starts to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So there are treatments you can use, but it's great that you don't have fluoride in it. It's great that you don't have chlorine in it. That's a big plus.
Sure.
So it for health reasons, but I mean, there might be birds that shit on the roof and, the catchment, and you can have a first flush system that gets rid of the first flush. But it's still, if you're drinking that water, it's worthwhile putting it through a filter.
Yeah.
And there's a number of really good filter technologies, which I can go into. I'm declaring my commercial interest here because I'm producing whole house water filters that can do your bathing water and your drinking water. But there's enough, it's really worth having a filter for if you're drinking it and bathing in it. And then if you're going to use that for agriculture, there are these structuring devices that can improve the ability to grow plants.
Okay.
But the fact that and I'm going to harp on this because I think Norfolk Island, you've got a great opportunity because the rest of the world is getting so polluted, and that's pollution with water pollution, air pollution, electromagnetic pollution. I've just one of my students, we've just done a study on electromagnetic radiation and sleep. And I just saying that sleep's one of the most basic things. If you're not sleeping well, everything else sort of falls apart. But if you sleep well, you can cope with a lot more. Yeah. So the fact that people can come to Norfolk Island and not have the electromagnetic radiation, not have the poison in the water and the pollution in the air and all these other benefits, you've already got a wellness destination there because of the pristine nature of your environment. And I think that needs to be maximized. So then if you can create like regenerative agriculture. So say, Norfolk Island, we're trying to keep poison off. We use minimal pesticides. We don't treat our water with poison. We respect the air, the food, the soil. And that becomes a tourism asset that I think people will be drawn to because it's actually becoming much more rare to be able to have those sort of natural, pristine environments as industry, crosses the world and everything gets more polluted. So so it is worth getting a basic filter, but it's the fact that you're on tank water is a plus.
We might share your links to your is it Beautiful Water, your water business?
Yep, I'll put the links in the chat.
Asking, if you can link in the chat, that'd be great. And when you've done that, Marc, I'll take you back just to link back to the talking about soil biome, and can you just talk about the soil and the gut biome and how they are related or connected, and why should we care about them both?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're totally connected. I mean, bacteria and viruses are everywhere, and they talk to each other. They're really promiscuous, and they share bits of DNA. So we actually know that there's quite a bit of research recently on what they call forest bathing. And that's research that documents just going into a place where there's lots of trees and just sitting and being there, you exchange DNA with the soil and the trees. And and when you eat organic food, the soil, I mean, because you never wash off all the bacteria on that food. The bacteria on that food exchange genetic information with the bacteria in your gut. So you've got this exchange, and they do that through viruses. And right now there's this global pandemic, and everyone's supposed to be scared of viruses. But viruses are just like literally like messages. You can think of them like emails, and the envelope around the virus is like a letter. It's literally like an envelope, and it carries the email. So these little messages, and these messages are happening between the food you eat, the soil bacteria, and your gut bacteria all the time. And we're still understanding the gut microbiome. I mean, it's been around, known for 20 years or so. In the last 10 years, we've had an explosion of research. And there's a company in Brisbane, Microba, that do gut microbiome analysis. And there are these different markers. They look at the diversity of the bacteria. They look at the type of bacteria. But right now, for every 6 people they measure, they discover a new bacteria that's never been discovered before. So we're still in the very early days of really understanding the whole range. So it's hard to say, this is the one bacteria you want, because just like in a garden, there's not one plant that you want, because that one plant overgrows, it becomes a weed. But if it's there in a small amount and you've got a good ecosystem, then all the plants support each other. The nitrogen fixers, and then the other plants that will then dig deep down with their roots. So often herbs do that. They have long tap roots, so they bring up minerals from the ground. So you want this ecosystem in your gut, just like you want the ecosystem in your soil, and you want them to exchange information. And as I say, it's still early days for us to understand that, but it's quite well documented that when you go into nature, you're not just communicating through your senses, the sight and the sound and the smells of nature. The bacteria in your body are also having a nature experience, and they're getting information and communicating with the microbes and the viruses around them. And even in seawater, there's 55 trillion viruses in every liter of seawater. So it's this whole unseen world that we're just discovering now with genomic technology. Oh, sorry about that. And
this is order for beautiful waters just come through. See, hey, someone's just ordered a water filter on the phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, these water filters are great, and well, actually, then if we talk about beautiful water, that's filtered. So you have the basic microbiologically safe water that's been filtered. It's structured because it goes through like a vortex, and it causes, which actually mimics nature. So when water in nature doesn't flow in straight lines and right angles and elbows and bends, it flows in vortices and it cavitates. So when water hits a rock, it then cycles in on itself and forms vortices, and you get these little air pockets and cavitates. And that's the way water actually cleans itself in nature and structures itself. So these filters replicate that in terms of the structuring. Then they balance the water by not taking the minerals out and naturally removing some of the organic acids and the pollutants, which are acidic, and releasing carbon dioxide. And what that does, it naturally increases the pH of the water, but doesn't naturally because of the minerals. And then in the beautiful water systems, we've got this design in the filters where it's got sacred geometry, it's got these magic. It's sort of alchemical symbols that are not scientific at all. It's magic. But if you look at water, there are 72 scientific anomalies in water we don't understand. So if there's magic anywhere in the world, it's in water.
Yeah.
And there's also these blessing words. So on the filters, in very, very small writing, within the sacred geometry of what's called Metatron's cube, which is Metatron's cube is if you get a circle and you put 6 circles around it and another 6 around that, and you link up all the circles, that's called the fruit of life. But if you link up all those circles, you get a shape called Metatron's cube, which contains all the different platonic solids in the one diagram. So that's part of the design. But then the lines that draw that up are actually lines of text. And that text says, I love you, I respect you, I thank you, I bless you, I am you. 648 times for every design. So that's part of it. And we're actually doing research to find out if that actually makes a difference. So what we're doing, we're actually testing bacteria and yeast. So in our kombucha production, does that bacteria and yeast respond to different water? Like if we vortex the water or bless the water, do we get a better kombucha? So that's part of the ongoing research we're doing. But it's certainly no downside of having something in your water. But and there's people like Masaru Emoto and other people in Germany who have studied water, and they recommend if you just write I love you on your water, that changes whether it's the I love you that changes it or whether it's just your consciousness around there's something good about that water.
Changes the crystalline.
And I think having a good feeling, so having a good feeling from where your water comes from, I think is really healthy for you. And water is not just this industrial product that you buy and it's just to hydrate you. Water is, if you count the molecules in your body, you're 99% water molecules. Because water is tiny. All the other molecules in your body are massive. So it's, protein and DNA and collagen are huge, and they're all surrounded by water. So you're 2/3 water by volume or by mass, but you're 99% of your molecules are water molecules. And to have a good feeling about the water that's coming to you is good for you. So, and that could just be putting a photo of someone, whether you have a guru or a prayer or any statement, the fact that you've got that connection, that positive intention with your water, I think is really powerful. And the other thing about at least beautiful water is, it's filtered, structured, balanced, blessed, and it's given away for free, and it flows freely. Because once you contain water in a tank or a bottle, it starts to lose its structure. Water likes to be flowing, doesn't like to be stagnant. And even water in a lake or the oceans is never stagnant. It's always circulating and flowing. And water, again, shouldn't be a commodity that you buy and sell. It needs to be given free. And so what I've done with this company is we're encouraging businesses to buy these filters and give it away for free to customers, which means that any other businesses in the neighborhood won't sell plastic water bottles.
Yeah.
And, if Norfolk Island got together and said, rather than having plastic water bottles, we're going to have point of use filtration. And if you think about the cost, a liter of water in a plastic water bottle might cost you about $3. A liter of water coming out of one of these filters costs about 1/5 of 1 cent. So it's literally hundreds of times cheaper to filter water on site than it is to ship plastic water bottles. And right now on Earth, there are 500 billion plastic water bottles every year that are produced and thrown away. That's 1 million every minute. So, if you could have Norfolk Island, we're a beautiful water town, or we're a beautiful water island. We don't have plastic water bottles, but everywhere you go, there's a point of use filtration. And, that again is a massive asset. So if you had, your bike paths or, your public spaces and people can go and just get a water fountain and drink beautiful water, again, that's going to be a big tourist plus. And it also means that people don't have to buy and sell and pollute with plastic water bottles.
I'm going to take you, mate, just change tack a little here, watching the clock. So talk to us about some global example or prototypes, if you like, of places or resorts that embody regenerative wellness in all its forms, including water and so on. But what are some places that we can see around the world that arguably create some sort of prototype that Norfolk can, borrow from, if you like?
Well, I mean, there aren't many places that have done this really well. I mean, one place that I know a lot about, which is Moruya Hot Springs in New Zealand. And that's because I'm a co-owner of Moruya Hot Springs. And this is a very boutique little hot spring resort in the middle of the South Island in New Zealand, where it's off the grid. So the whole property runs on hydro station. And that, so water literally runs the whole property. There's natural hot water that comes up. And I've just found out yesterday, we've just won for the 3rd year in a row, we've won, luxury World Spa Luxury Awards. It's the best eco resort and the best thermal resort. But that's a property where people come because of the pristine nature of the nature. So it's right in the middle of the South Island in the Southern Alps. We're 4 acres of freehold and 400,000 acres of national park. So people can go out and walk from there into these, into the alpine wilderness and get a nature experience that's really pristine. So the air's really clean, the water's really clean. So that's I can go into depth, but that's one example that we took over 5 years ago, and it was really run down as a property. We've sort of upgraded it, and now we're starting to win global awards. Another place I do consulting for some spa development companies. One's a really quite big one called GoCo Hospitality, which are based out of Bangkok. And they're involved in multi-billion-dollar developments for, the Saudi government, the world's biggest wellness retreat at the moment. But they've done a project in Costa Rica called RISE, R-I-S-E. And it hasn't even opened yet. I think they're just about to do their opening soon. So RISE in Costa Rica is like a permaculture, regenerative wellness retreat. And they've got all the, the yoga and the meditation and all the sort of wellness retreat features. But because they're a permaculture, regenerative agriculture, it's all organic agriculture. Again, they really respect and promote the natural environment as the greatest producer of health. So the more you can tap in, because the natural environment is such a valuable resource. So rather than degrading it, they want to promote that. So they don't use any pesticides. They don't use even down to the cleaning chemicals they use or that they don't use. So there's cleaning practices you can do which still keep everything clean, but you don't have to saturate things with disinfectant and chemicals. And again, you talked about the difference between health and wellness. Well, health is often about safety. So you want to disinfect everything. You want to, put chlorine in the water and disinfecting all your surfaces. Whereas wellness is about supporting life and supporting diversity and supporting, positive interactions between all different organisms. So you're creating an ecosystem, and we are all ecosystems because of the soil that we carry around in our gut bacteria, and on our skin, for example. Gotcha. So, RISE in Costa Rica. There are a few other permaculture retreats. There's a couple in Bali, but there's none that I can say that have really nailed it. And a lot of the high end, the 5-star sort of luxury. Six Senses as a brand. Six Senses is a luxury spa retreat brand, and they do it really well. I became really good friends, with Sonu Shivdasani, who was the founder and owner of Six Senses, and started in the Maldives, and now he since sold that brand, but he really promoted that brand on its environmental ethics. His wife was Swedish, and she was a staunch environmentalist. So they created like a 5-star or even 6-star luxury brand, and they call it barefoot luxury. Yep. So so luxury isn't having 5-star where you got marble bathrooms and gold taps. Luxury is having be able to walk barefoot from your place to the beach, and then having the salad that you're eating at night picked that morning in the organic garden, rather than having something flown from France in a can and gotcha. Traveling around the world. So having seasonal, local, organic, whole food is also a real plus. So the more you can grow on site and the more people can involve with that is really positive.
As opposed to necessarily the traditional 5-star thing we think of. Is that a trend that, it's easy to assume that's happening globally, and that's, it's where consumers want more of it. But are you seeing that consumers, voting with their wallets, so to speak, to prove this is something they actually want?
Well, they are. And right now, the Global Wellness Summit's on right now, and I've been a board member of the Global Wellness Summit for 14 years. So this is the first one I've ever missed. It's happening in Florida right now. So I'm up at 2 in the morning now, doing stuff there. But the whole wellness industry, the whole global tourism has just taken a king hit with the pandemic. Yeah. Because people aren't traveling. And what we've found, in fact, just going back to Maruya has just had its best recorded 3 months on record, the last 3 months, even though there's no international travel. And that's because people want to go back into nature. They don't want to be crowded into a city environment. They don't want to go into some big hotel. Yeah. They want to go out into nature, and they want to have that wellness experience. Now, we haven't seen the fallout of the whole global tourism industry, but people certainly, they want to go to places where they're not as crowded. They want to go to places that support their well-being. So we've seen a big uptrend in another one of my passions, which is contrast bathing. Saunas and cold bathing, which boosts your immunity. And, I've written papers on how that can boost your immunity, but also just boost your overall health and well-being, because it changes your blood flow. So it gives you more nutrition for your skin, and literally makes you more beautiful because your skin is feeling better and your organs get to detoxify. So having those sort of experiences, I know the sauna companies in Australia right now are going gangbusters. Because people are locked up in home, their gyms are shut, so they're putting home saunas in. So that is another trend that I think we're seeing. So as I say, we haven't seen the fallout. I mean, travel hasn't reopened. I think, I'm stuck down in Melbourne for the last 8 months. I don't think I haven't been in the same place, this long since I was a child.
Yeah.
But what we're finding is that people, wellness and health is on the forefront of people's minds right now.
That's playing out in New South Wales. We were out in country New South Wales recently thinking, we'll just find a motel for the night, and in these little tiny towns, they're just booked up with people because you can't get a hotel, or you can't get a restaurant, literally, in places like Glen Innes and things, because they're everyone's going bush for the same reason you just described. So I think you're probably onto it there.
Yeah, so I think, and again, having a pristine environment where you're on an island, just like New Zealand and where we are in Maruya, where we're in this sort of pristine environment already, that becomes a huge asset that other people can't compete with. Because if you're a city hotel or even a resort place in an environment where there's big power lines and there's agriculture down the road with spray drift giving pesticides onto your property. I mean, there are supply line challenges, so becoming more independent of what you can grow, some greenhouses to grow food on site and have that available to people. But I think it is a huge asset that you have because you're on an island.
Yeah. Guys, we might jump to some questions from our esteemed audience here. Has anyone got anything specific you want to ask of Marc? Louise? Oh, yeah. What's your thinking on the Anthony William, the medical medium writings on Epstein-Barr virus being the cause of an enormous amount of people's issues? He says we often get it young in life and it escalates and attaches to other organs like the thyroid, increasing.
Yeah, okay. I'm just seeing that on the chat. Yeah. So I'm not familiar with Anthony William, but I think what we're learning right now about the virome. So we talked about the microbiome, which is the bacteria that live inside us, but the virome is a whole nother level. And they say that all the bacteria on Earth get killed every second day by viruses called phages, bacteriophages. So that there are orders of magnitude, there are like literally millions of times more viruses than there are bacteria. And the bacteria we're finding out are so healthy. And we think of that viruses about causing illness. They also cause wellness because the viruses in our bodies that are already there, almost like from the primordial soup that we've evolved in, control a lot of the pathogens. And there are pathogenic viruses, whether it's Epstein-Barr virus or other viruses that are potentially dangerous. But and most of them are in everybody. I mean, most people get exposed to Epstein-Barr virus, and whether it's coronaviruses or any other virus, pretty much everyone gets exposed, but we don't all get sick. And there's quite a lot of research in the wellness literature that says you can transmit a virus, but you don't transmit the illness. It's up to your body to create that illness. And often those viruses will get reactivated because your general health is being suppressed. And it's not the virus that's causing the illness, it's the disruption in that ecosystem. So there's some disruption that's actually allowed that virus to over-represent or to overproduce. And we say, the virus has caused the illness, but the virus is actually there as just part of the whole complex, the sort of holistic expression of that illness. And it's because you've disturbed the ecosystem. So it's like saying that, if you've got a garden and you have one particular pest that's, going out of proportion, well, that pest hasn't necessarily caused, the problem in your crops. What's caused it is there's been some ecosystem disruption, and that pest has taken over that niche. So that pest is a signal of that ecosystem disruption. It's not necessarily the cause of it. And I think that's probably similar in our bodies. We have disruption in our body, and then you'll find whether it's a virus marker or a genetic marker, or even thyroid function that is associated with that, but then it's not necessarily a cause or relationship. And that's where you want to really, not that we can ever fully understand the whole ecosystem, because the relationships are so complex. And as I say, we're still discovering new bacteria we've never even heard of before. Every time, every 6 people we study. But it's understanding the principles of how do you keep that ecosystem healthy, and which means diversity is really important. You want to have a balance across a whole range of different types of whether that's plants or bacteria or viruses as well. And the same with people. I mean, you want to have a diversity of people on your island. If you're talking about an island. So it's treating the whole system as an ecosystem rather than saying, oh, here's one problem. Okay, we have to get rid of that problem. So we just, hit that problem. It's like, then it becomes like whack-a-mole. You hit that problem with the pesticide and then another problem springs up, and you try and whack that problem with something else, rather than treating the whole ecosystem and getting it back into balance. So that would be the wellness approach.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mark? I've got a Heidi. Oh yeah. What are your thoughts on mandatory vaccinations for COVID? There's a hot one. Do you think travel will be reliant on people having the vaccination?
Well, I support autonomy over our bodies. I think mandatory anything with health is problematic. And I know there are many people that want to have travel and just participation in everyday life as reliant on vaccinations. I think that's a political question. It's not a medical question, and I'm not a politician. But there are big, vast interests, and the pharmaceutical interests. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars relying on vaccinations and control, and then digital currencies and tracking and tracing. And this is a whole new world that we're moving into. And because Norfolk Island, you're relying on people to travel. You're really you sort of depend on all of these policies, and policy might change and suddenly travel dries up, and you have to work out how do we address that. So right now, if people can't travel to Norfolk Island, what do you do with your tourism industry? They all just suffer, and we're seeing that around the world, that the tourism industry is just totally suffered, and it's almost in the point where we'll do anything to get back. Okay, give us vaccines or give us whatever we want. We just want to get back to work, and I think that's actually a really dangerous situation. But that's it's not my expertise. I'm not a politician. I'm a medical doctor. But I think it's really worrying. I think the trend is really worrying.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one.
Okay, here's another question from Margaret, asking about 4G and what are its effects. So this is something I can speak about because, as well as doing a medical degree, I did a PhD in electrical computer systems engineering, where I looked at the effect of electromagnetic fields in health. And one of my PhD students right now, her name's Nicole Bousma, and she created the building biology industry in Australia. So she's run the Australian College of Environmental Studies, where she teaches a 3-year full-time course of people to go into a property and look at things like mold and electromagnetic fields and chemicals and test for those and look at the effects on health. And I can give you some results. I spoke to her this morning, hot off the press, which we haven't published this yet, mind you. So we did a double-blind study where we got people to sleep, couples to sleep with a baby monitor next to their bed. And we could do this ethically because baby monitors are designed to be next to your bed. And unbeknownst to the people who were sleeping, the baby monitor was either turned off or turned on. It looked like it was on, but it was either off or on. And they did that for a couple of weeks when it was on, and then they rested for a couple of weeks, and they did it again in a couple of weeks when it was off. And it was randomized whether it was on or off. And we measured their sleep with an EEG, and we measured their heart rate variability, and we measured their insomnia rating scales and things. And what we found is that it made a difference. If you sleep with a 4G, and that's 4G, and that's 2.45 megahertz, or gigahertz, which is what a cordless phone would use in your house, or what a baby monitor would use, or what a common modem would use. So that's like a 4G signal, and that actually made a difference to sleep. And coming back to my earlier comments that if you're not sleeping well, then your whole ecosystem is thrown out. So suddenly, your psychology, you don't think well, your body can't respond, you're not as resilient. So sleep is one of those really basic things you want to get right. And, the least electromagnetic radiation you can have in terms of artificial, I think the better if you're going to become a wellness destination. So that's, I'm just seeing another question from Nathan here. Business opportunities, spa treatments, restaurants and cafes selling organic, clean food, forest walks. Well, I think what are the ways that you can celebrate the remoteness and the pristine level of your environment? So whether that's doing some regenerative projects where you regenerate some forest areas, or you promote that, or the flora and the fauna. So, you know, whether you've got specific bird life or nature life, so you bring the bird lovers who will come and you know, do bird watching, or you'll bring nature lovers that will come, or people that can hike, and then provide them with wellness experiences. So if I know I can come to Norfolk Island, I can see these rare animals, I can hike in nature, and I can have clean water, and I can have, you know, good food, and a community, an ecosystem around me that supports me in that, that becomes a really desirable location. And if you can create a consensus across the island to say, okay, how do we make an island of clean water? Well, let's be the first beautiful water island. So we don't have, you know, all our water is, you know, pristine. How do we do that to make sure our air quality, you're in an island, so you've got fresh air, but how do we preserve that? How do we reduce? How do we still get the benefits of, you know, we all have the internet and we all have to live online, but how do we do that with the minimal amount of electromagnetic radiation? Maybe we need a bit more money in a fiber optic cable through the island, and we can reduce that, the 5G towers or the 4G towers. So I think there are certainly ways to do that. In terms of the business offerings, I mean, spa treatments is one, but spa treatments is pretty sort of standard, because, you know, you can do that anywhere. But having a unique spa treatment, are there any, I mean, do you have any natural features that you can include as part of a treatment, or you can do the treatment in nature? So this idea that, you know, barefoot luxury, and I think people are seeking that. And if you can then, you know, and I've never been to Norfolk, so I'd love to go there and sort of walk and see, you know, what are the features there you can really celebrate. And even if it's like the style of the building architecture, that, you know, the houses have a building biology certification. So you know that you're not you know, the paints you use and the varnishes and the building materials, you know, you're not going to have asbestos, and you're going to be guaranteed a healthy experience. I think that's, the more you can sort of focus on that, and that becomes part of your brand. Because right now, Norfolk Island, and so I've not been there, but, you know, when I think about it, I think, oh, it's some remote island off the, you know, I don't even know exactly. It's pretty far off New South Wales, and, you know, it's not, you know, I don't know. There's nothing that really pops into my head to say that's the reason to go there. You know, there's not one branded reason to go there. So to trying to create a consciousness around the island to say, you know, Norfolk Island, we're a wellness destination, and when I consult to spas and resorts and retreats, the first thing you talk about for a wellness destination is getting the staff well, making sure the staff understand it, making sure that, you know, they're living a fantastic, vibrant, healthy life. Because if the staff aren't living a healthy, vibrant, fantastic life, then they can't provide that for the guests.
Yeah.
So as a wellness destination, you want to say, okay, if you live on Norfolk Island, you know, we're one of these, you know, blue zones. You know, we live longer, we live happier. You know, Norfolk Island residents feel fantastic, and we want to share this fantastic feeling with the world. So you'd actually work out what the health problems are on Norfolk Island and trying to address them. And often health problems, you know, like I talked about the whack-a-mole, you know, there'll be a problem that sparks up and you're trying to knock it down with a drug, and it'll spark up somewhere else. But if you can identify what are the health issues on the island, they're all opportunities to then change the ecosystem. Rather than just address that health problem, you say, okay, how can we tweak the whole ecosystem to support the resilience of these people so that problem goes away and we uplift the health of everybody, not just the sick people. And I think if you can make sure that the people who live on Norfolk Island are really well, and then everyone there becomes a walking advertisement for that island life, and then that becomes desirable. So I think, yeah, that having, because I mean, essentially, if Norfolk Island is a tourist destination, everyone living there is part of the staff. You know, they're the, you know, the advertisements for it. So you want to have everyone there living, you know, healthy, vibrant lives. So, you know, and that requires a cultural change. You want to create a culture of wellness, not just, you know, a marketing opportunity.
Like one of the Allison's mentioned here, the barefoot luxury versus high-end luxury, or the barefoot experience, and that sort of getting away from this idea that we need to be 5-star, which is expensive to set up and costly. Yep. It can be a 5-star environment or a 6-star environment based on nature. Is Is that where you go down that
I
road?
like the idea of the rather than 5-star, I like the idea of 5 billion star luxury.
Yeah, right.
Because you look at the stars at night, you got 5 billion stars up there. So, and as I say, to have a marble bathroom and a gold tap, you can get it in any hotel around the world. That's not exciting anymore. And that's if you look at 5-star ratings, Michelin star ratings. You have to have a phone in the toilet and different things which aren't that relevant anymore. But the idea of having the barefoot luxury, that I know I can walk around the island barefoot because it's not going to be, things that are thorns are going to stick in me, and I know that I can safely drink the water anywhere on the island because it's all going to be pristine water, and I know I can eat the food in any of the venues on the island because I know the food on the island is seasonal, local, organic, whole foods, and I can talk to people on the island and everyone's going to be happy and be part of that. So that's the barefoot luxury idea. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, you're talking building a hotel room for a 5-star property. It's $500,000 per room is a rough budget. But to do a barefoot luxury and to do it wisely and bring nature inside. I mean, certainly you want to have the basics covered. You want to have the airflow. You want to have the temperature modulated. You want people to be comfortable as possible. But it can be more luxurious to have a log fire in winter than just having central heating that turns that on and keeps the property warm. Yeah. So a log fire is not 5-star, but it's barefoot luxury, and I think people really crave that. As humans, I mean, just having fires in winter is rare, but there's something hypnotizing and natural about wood smoke and about a fire that we're drawn to. So they're the sort of elements that I think you can build in, which don't have to cost a lot of money. They just need to have the thought and the intention. I think is also important, because you can sort of do it to a recipe, but if you're not really thinking about it from the guest experience perspective, you can sort of then you can get it wrong. So it's also this ecosystem approach rather than just ticking the boxes to get some Michelin stars.
Yeah. But on a similar vein, I was wondering, there's a couple of farmers and producers in the audience here, and I wonder if there's any experience you can share around branding or allowing consumers to understand the origin of their food. Say a farmer produces great quality food and good quality soil, but if it's on the restaurant plate or in the shop, any good experience in sharing that story of its origin and how much love and care has gone into it? Because that's often producers create great food that just gets shoved next to the other stuff at Coles, and there's no distinction in terms of price or quality.
I mean, in Australia, when I'm thinking about that, I'm not thinking of King Island. So you think about King Island, what do you think of? Well, what I think of is King Island cheese and, and cream, and so they've created a brand around their island around a produce. So people who've never been to King Island would know about King Island because they can buy it in the supermarket. And they're saying King Island double cream or King Island cheese, and you think, oh, that's pristine environment. So it would be what are the produce that you can produce on Norfolk Island that you're not necessarily producing commodity crops, but you're producing like a boutique wellness product that can be branded Norfolk Island, and it could be, I don't know, it could be a beverage like a wine, or it could be a cheese, or it could be a type of grain for a bread, or you'd have to talk to the farmers and understand what's there, and strategically work out, okay, this is the one product that we're going to try and become part of our brand, part of the DNA of the island. And people come to Norfolk Island, you come there because you want to have whatever that produce is. Now, I don't know enough about Norfolk to say that. But I think there are opportunities there to identify a product and brand it as part of what you want to create for the Norfolk Island brand. And I think it's really exciting for me to be talking to a whole community that want to create a wellness brand around the whole community. Because that is very rarely done. And it's really complex. It's not easy to do, because at the moment, the branded communities, you've heard about the blue zones around the world, Sardinia and the Hunza, these places where people live over 100. They're sort of wellness communities that people now go and try and visit and stay there. But what it involves is the community on Norfolk getting in touch with the nature and the geography of Norfolk Island and say, what are the wellness assets here? What can we invest in terms of the high return on investment. We don't have to put a lot of effort. You don't have to put any effort to get clean air. You've already got it. You just have to keep it clean by not having, polluting industries. What are the produce that you can produce easily there that would be unique in the marketplace and capitalize on that pristine environment and the health of the people? So, as I say, I don't know enough about the farming that happens on Norfolk, but that would be the opportunities I look at. And then you could get the whole community behind those particular products, and then that becomes part of your marketing strategy.
My 2 cents on that is the commonality between all those things you just mentioned. To me, again, looking in on the ecosystem on the island rather than being part of it, but is around the narratives around the biome, like the biome and the biome of the soil and the air and the sea and the gut, and a gut correction type, renew your biome type narrative has. I think there's something in that personally. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at a restaurant, last night, and Roselle, the farmer there, meeting the restaurateur who he has his own farm, and he produces wines and pumpkins and things. And he was explaining how in this farm he does dry farming, he doesn't irrigate, but in Beechworth there's natural granite that comes up, so that there's natural minerals in the soil that then supply the grapes, and there's a sort of sweetness that comes in the grapes and in the pumpkins. And so it was part of the soil, the minerals in the soil that then sort of provide the benefits for the produce. Yeah. And there will be some. So you work out what grows well at Norfolk. What are your natural resources, the natural assets you have in the soil? And as I say, we know that the soil is the biggest natural asset in terms of living information on Earth. So you're going to have, there will be particular features of Norfolk Island soil that will benefit particular types of produce and the people. So trying to enhance that rather than suppress it. And so right now, for example, you're talking about industries. I know a bit about this because in the kombucha company I've created, which I shall put a link there, and we haven't even gone to market yet. We've got these little tiny little jars with so each one of these is an infinite amount of kombucha in there because of the microbes in that. And you can take that it doesn't need refrigeration. You can take that as a shot. You can drink it, put in spring water or mineral water as a drink. You can put it on your salad as a salad dressing, or you can make cocktails with it. Vin and tonic, vinegar and tonic is great. But you can use that as a starter culture and just feed it sweet tea and it'll keep growing. But what we're putting in there, we put 10 different types of herbs, but medicinal mushrooms. So we put, lion's mane, chaga, maitake mushrooms. And in terms of a crop that has a very high value, medicinal mushrooms are becoming really trendy now because fungi are amazing. I mean, fungi really are fantastic. And I've been privileged enough to hang out with Paul Stamets, who's one of the world's leading mycologists. And in terms of a high yield, in terms of the value you can produce, so medicinal mushrooms might be something worth looking at growing. And you could be known as we're growing lion's mane mushroom in Dalesford. And lion's mane is an incredible mushroom. It's great for the brain, it's great for the body. But that might be an example of the type of product you can produce, which is a high-end, high-value product that it's not a medicine, but it's a food as medicine. But it can go into other products. So that might be an example of something that you could look at.
Yeah, Rebecca Gupty, I've got my eye on you there. No, all right. Keep my eye on you for that one. Mark, I think we're out of time, and I won't wrap that up. But mate, thank you so much for your input and ideas there. It's always having spoken to you prior to this call, I found it fascinating, and you haven't failed to deliver again. It's been great. So thanks so much.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. And as I say, I really get excited about talking at this high-end level to a whole community about doing wellness and then having an offering, because that becomes really authentic. It becomes who you are, not just sort of a little bit of branding or a little bit of some sort of gimmick that will bring people in. It becomes changing people's lives at a fundamental level. So thanks for that opportunity. I'll just put the other logo website there. And I've also got, I'm running one of my other things is Extreme Wellness Academy, where I teach a whole lot of different courses, and I'll just put that one there as well.
Yeah, great. I'll probably back up, mate, on that. I think there's never a better time post-COVID and the awarenesses and the things that are going around in the world, and this move back towards, getting away from cities and into wellness. I think, this has been a pretty timely discussion all around. So,
yeah, so I'd love to stay in touch and hear what happened, or if anything happened from this, because it's, as I say, I think it's really exciting. So, and I see Ali on the call. So, hi, Ali. We can, touch base and keep me involved. So,
right,
thanks.
we'll keep in the loop. Watch this space. Very good. Great. Thanks,
Great.
Mark. Good on you. Yeah.
Yes.